Right now, 1 in 10 people reading this sentence will reach for their left hand. Not by choice, not by habit, by wiring. Somewhere in your brain, before you were born, a decision was already made, and you had no say in it. Here is the strange part. Scientists have studied left-handedness for over a century. Skeletons, cave paintings, twin studies, brain scans, and the number never moves. Roughly 1 in 10 humans is left-handed, and that ratio has held for at least 500,000 years. Not one generation, not one culture, 500,000 years. Think about what else has changed in that time. Diet changed, language changed, entire species of humans went extinct, but the 10% stayed exactly the same. Why would evolution protect something so small? To understand this, you have to go back further than history, back to stone tools. In 2011, researchers at the University of Kansas examined 1.4 million-year-old hand axes from East Africa. The wear patterns on the cutting edges told a story. Most of the tool makers were right-handed. About 1 in 10 were not. The same ratio in tools chipped by hands that predate modern humans entirely. That means handedness isn't a modern trait. It isn't something culture invented. It was already baked into our ancestors before Homo sapiens existed as a species. So where does it come from? The answer starts in the womb, not the classroom. In 2017, a study published in eLife found that hand preference is visible on ultrasound as early as 8 weeks gestation, long before a fetus has a working brain capable of choosing anything. The spinal cord, not the brain, appears to control which arm moves first. Your hand was chosen before your first breath. That single fact overturns almost everything people assume about left-handedness. It isn't a bad habit corrected too late. It isn't a preference formed by which hand you happen to use first as a toddler. It's closer to a blueprint written into your body before your brain was even finished building itself. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. For most of recorded history, that blueprint was treated as a defect. The word left in Latin is sinister. In French, gauche means both left and clumsy. In dozens of unrelated languages across the world, the word for left-handed doubles as a word for wrong, evil, or unlucky. That is not a coincidence of vocabulary. That is a pattern repeated across cultures that never spoke to each other. Why would so many separate civilizations independently decide the same 10% of people were dangerous? Some historians point to practical fear. In medieval Europe, most tools, weapons, and doorways were built right-handed by default, because that was the majority. A left-handed swordsman moved differently in formation, which could get the soldier next to him killed. A left-handed farmer using right-handed tools worked slower and clumsier, and clumsiness in a world without modern medicine could mean death. Left-handedness wasn't seen as evil because of superstition alone. It was inconvenient in a world that punished inconvenience. But superstition did the rest. Throughout the Middle Ages, left-handed children in parts of Europe were physically restrained. Their left hand was tied behind their back, sometimes for years, to force them into writing and eating with their right. This practice continued in some schools well into the 20th century. Teachers in Britain and the United States were still correcting left-handed students as late as the 1960s. Which raises the real question. If we spent centuries actively trying to erase left-handedness, why does it still sit at 10%? This is where the biology gets genuinely strange. In 2019, researchers at Oxford analyzed genetic data from nearly 400,000 people and found handedness is only partly inherited, roughly 25%. The rest appears to come from something happening randomly during brain development itself, specifically in the way the two hemispheres of the brain divide their labor. Left-handed brains, on average, show less lateralization. That means the left and right hemispheres share responsibilities more evenly, instead of one side dominating clearly defined tasks like language or spatial reasoning. That difference shows up in surprising places. Some studies have found left-handed people are statistically overrepresented among elite fencers, boxers, and tennis players, likely because right-handed opponents train against right-handed opponents almost exclusively and rarely learn to read a left-handed attack. In a world built for the majority, being the minority can become a hidden weapon. So if left-handedness offers real advantages in combat and sport, and it's been stable for 500,000 years despite centuries of active suppression, we're left with an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe 10% isn't a glitch evolution failed to fix. Maybe it's a ratio evolution is actively protecting. Some researchers call this a frequency-dependent advantage. As long as left-handers stay rare, they keep an element of surprise against a right-handed majority. If everyone became left-handed, that advantage would disappear. 10% might be the exact number where the advantage of rarity outweighs the cost of living in a right-handed world. In other words, you weren't born left-handed by accident. You were born left-handed because somewhere in the deep math of survival, a small number of outliers made the whole species stronger. Every left-handed scissors that doesn't quite work right, every desk built for the wrong arm, every centuries-old insult buried inside an ordinary word, all of it aimed at erasing a trait that never budged, because it was never a mistake to begin with. It was a strategy older than language itself. So the next time you watch someone sign their name with their left hand, you're not looking at an exception to how humans are built. You're looking at evidence of how humans survived.